Multiplayer is one of the biggest drivers of gaming today. Countless hours are spent across multiple titles, lobbies are filled with friends jumping on to enjoy an evening session, and a lot of rage and frustration happens. Some of the hottest games on the market right now are multiplayer focused, whether it be battle royales like Fortnite or Warzone, round-based games like Valorant or Call of Duty, and the array of PvE related games are staggering. Over the last few years, I've started to notice some patterns, and I've picked up more on the problems, which has left me bored, dejected, and frustrated a lot of the time. It's a combination of many different elements that are littered into today's multiplayer games, and especially in PvP. Slowly and gradually, I've stopped playing them to the point where I've outright quit playing them altogether. I haven't quit playing PvE related games that feature multiplayer though. There are certain factors to why I keep playing them, but I don't play a lot of PvP focused games anymore. But rather than sit here and say all PvP games are trash and call it a day, allow me to explain why I quit multiplayer gaming and why it's just not the same anymore. Reason number 1, the death of casual fun. A big part of my decline in PvP gaming over the last few years is the focus towards something I like to call hyper-optimization. With the emergence of social media and video streaming platforms, there has been a change to how people play multiplayer. After a week of a new game releasing, there are already thousands of clips, suggestions, and videos out there on what is the best gun to use, the best loadout, the sweatiest camp spots, the best map strats, the easiest way to get kills. You could list any number of these. Now, I have no problem with those people that make that content, as I have made build videos in the past for multiple games, and I've hyper-optimized myself. The emergence of this has ultimately led to multiplayer games changing and their lifespans changing a little bit as well. Players will run the most meta setups, and if you're using anything else in the game just for a casual time, you're either going to get flamed by your teammates, or the game is going to punish you for not being optimal because the best things are usually going to win. This plagues every single game. Marvel Rivals is a game I've covered recently, and it also falls into the same issues for a similar reason. Playing heroes correctly is what people want, even in quick play. If you aren't being optimal, you are going to be stacking the odds against you, and this is why most PvP games after the first month, or even after the first week now, start to gradually become unfun. Sure, back in the 360 era of games, which kind of dates me, we had this as well. There would be these metas that formed slower than we see right now, and it would only be on forums for the game or more niche online spaces that these discussions of the best stuff to use would happen. It was more natural, and it didn't happen as much as it does now. It's currently amplified thanks to social media. But it goes much deeper than that when you start talking about matchmaking and how that has really disrupted a casual approach to playing these PvP games and how it's evolved over the years. The biggest offender of this I always point to is skill-based matchmaking. I know, when I start talking about skill-based matchmaking, it's an open goal, it's low-hanging fruit, it's the easiest thing to target. But the reason is because no developer has been able to get it right. It swings so wildly in many games that you can sense it's about to happen. You have 3 or 4 games in a row where you're doing well, and then you just know that that next one is going to be full of the sweatiest players that are going to absolutely stomp you and send you back down to where you belong. I understand why skill-based matchmaking exists. It's there to make games close and to make them competitive. But that's where it's lost, because it means that even in the more casual modes, everything is hyper-competitive. Combine that with the hyper-optimization, and if you want to succeed in public lobbies and not get stomped and have an entirely unenjoyable time, then you need to play into that hyper-competitive and optimized playstyle. And that's not even in the ranked modes. I won't sit here and say that open skill bracket is any better, but it feels like when the inclusion of skill-based matchmaking came in, it's really started to affect a lot of games, and it just didn't feel like that with a lot of games that I've played in the past. This issue is further amplified when a game's player base dwindles, because the skill curve ultimately gets tighter and becomes even more competitive, which makes it harder for players to jump back in or even new players to join the player base. I'm sure many people will agree that you don't want to sign on to a game with your friends to have to gear up for the sweatiest night of your life playing a game to win in your skill bracket or face people that are better than you. Smart players will just throw games to manipulate the system, which leads to a bad experience for everyone, the players that are trying and those that aren't. Hyper-competitiveness and optimization has certainly played a massive factor in the amount of time that I've been spending in PvP over the recent years, and that's why it's not as fun anymore. Reason number 2, lack of variety. One of the reasons I've moved away from PvP-focused games is largely down to the lack of variety. Sure, there are many games on the market that I can enjoy, more than ever I would say, but the problem is we've become hyper-focused on either one game mode or game type, and it means that a lot of the games feel very much the same. It would be incredibly disingenuous of me to kind of boil every single game down to the sum of its parts and say that game is exactly the same as another one, but despite some differences, that's what makes them stand out. They have their unique differences. You have the different spin on the genre. CSGO has Valorant. Fortnite has every other battle royale following it, despite being a variation of PUBG. Warzone and Apex are BRs, but from an FPS perspective. Street Fighter has Mortal Kombat and Tekken. They each have their own gimmick that can be utilized to promote variety, but this is a smokescreen for the issue. When the novelty of the gimmick dies out, we are all still playing the one game mode. Battle Royales have been a trend since 2016 with PUBG and then exploded with Fortnite, but afterwards, every other game that was multiplayer tried to follow suit. After you've dropped into the 4th or 5th version of a Battle Royale, you're still just playing the same mode in a different skin. If we remove the BRs from the equation, what else do we really have? Tactical shooters like CSGO or Valorant. Valorant essentially is CSGO, but with extra abilities and more things to think about, which makes it more chaotic, but the bones and structure are very much similar, but they are still just one particular game mode. The reality is, because of the shift towards following trends, it's pushed out arena shooters and games with genuinely unique takes on things. The big three certainly aren't the top anymore: Halo, Battlefield, and Call of Duty. With Call of Duty only really finding that success because of Warzone and then putting all of their development time into that and also their annual releases. All three of them have had massive missteps over the years, which has put them where they are now. And you may be asking the question, why am I talking about these three games specifically? It's because these games had so much variety in them over the course of modes. Capture the Flag, Sabotage, Rush, Operations, Rocket Race, Free-for-all, TDM, Juggernaut, Fiesta, Gun Game, the list goes on. Of course, this has evolved into games like Fortnite because they've branched out and are starting to do different things and have endless custom modes. But the point is, we don't see this anymore with new games releasing. It's just one mode and one track mind. Any attempt to bring something new and different ultimately ends if people get bored of said gimmick. With the emergence of live service and free to play, if there are no players playing your game, that means that you have no money, which means the game doesn't survive, and it ultimately leads to it being shut down, and we've seen that multiple times over the years. Any attempt at something new and fresh is too much of a risk at the moment. Whatever is popular, that's what needs to be made, and it's led to stagnation, trend following, especially in the multiplayer space, which hasn't been good at all. This leads us to the final reason in the video. Reason number 3, getting older. I know I can sit here and analyze and complain about every PvP game that I've played at the moment, what frustrates me, the issues outside of those games, but the very real reality is I might just be aging out of them. Naturally, when you are younger, you have faster reflexes, you're more engaged in whatever the game you're playing is, you have boatloads of time, and multiplayer games are the shit when you are younger. You get better so fast and you can maintain that level, plus you have friends that you can challenge or play with every day. You just want to get better at the game because you have time to do it. Maybe part of the reason I'm not enjoying PvP games as much anymore is because my tastes have changed. I know where I can find my fun. My skills are fading. I'm turning literally into Lightning McQueen in Cars 4. I'm just fading into the background whilst the younger generation slide cancels past me. As I've gotten older, I know that these games are going to elicit a certain reaction from me, whether that be anger or frustration or elation. And sometimes you just don't have the energy for it. And as much as I can believe that reality that I'm getting older and I'm just kind of not into them anymore, I know when the right game comes along, I can get addicted for hours. Rivals at the end of 2024 was a genuine surprise to me, and I really enjoyed playing that. Despite only putting in like 20 to 25 hours, I can still enjoy Battlefield, taking a slower approach by sniping people and enjoying that gunplay, and I can still enjoy Halo, and I'm still pretty decent at Halo. And part of me thinks the reason why I've quit in loose terms is because I've found my home in those games. So until a new game in that franchise releases, I'm not really going to be playing that much PvP multiplayer. Age also plays a factor because we just don't have as much time anymore. I've made this point before in a backlog video, but having a job, relationships, friends, responsibilities are a big chunk of people's day. The time we have to spend getting better at those games is limited with many people across the globe. We also don't have friends that are readily available if you want to jump into them because, funnily enough, we all have responsibilities. Have you tried to organize a game night with your friends when all of you are working different shifts? One of you has a kid and the other one can only play for 2 hours or so because they have to get off. They're up at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's so damn hard to do this, which is why many people opt for more PvE focused games if they get that time, because there's no stress, there's no frustration, there's anger. It's just a fun laugh and you can enjoy yourself with your friends. Or you can go and join that hellhole, which is skill-based matchmaking. But maybe I'm old. Maybe that's who I am now. Maybe I'm a boomer. Life changes, and so does what we play. I'll leave you with one last bit of honesty, because I would be lying if I said to you I would never play a multiplayer game again and never play a PvP game again. Give me a Halo or a Battlefield and I'm there, or maybe something crazy comes out of nowhere. Maybe Titanfall 3 comes out of nowhere and I'll jump into that. But for the foreseeable future, unless something really grabs me, I'll stick to the array of games in my backlog and all the future games on the horizon that I'm looking forward to play. But as always, tell me what you think down in the comment section. If you've got this far in the video, leave me a like, subscribe, and check out my other content on my channel. I've got a variety of different things, so if you want to find some enjoyment there, please go and do it. And as always, this has been It's Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.